Readers are leaders. Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. Today a reader, tomorrow a leader. Reading is essential for those who seek to rise above the ordinary. Now here are just a few of the quotes that motivate most of us to go and get a 100 cedis book or a $10 book just to start reading, only to realize that reading is not that easy. Yeah, I found myself in this situation about 4 years ago when I wanted to start reading seriously. Until then, I didn't really understand the value of reading because I grew up in a house where there were just two books. One was titled How to Plan Your Life. That was a non-fiction book, and then there was a story book that I don't even recall the name because I never read it. It was so big, too big, it discouraged me. Right, but then it really became necessary for me because of an exam I was preparing for. So like I had to get onto reading as soon as possible. But then I went to get a book. I began to search for books. I got books and realized that I would start the book with a lot of energy, but then I won't get far. Then I'll lose the motivation. Like it would just get too difficult for me to finish that book. So I started exploring strategies to read. I tried to keep to reading regularly, like maybe 30-minute sessions every day. It was really tough. I went through it, but throughout all this period, I was trying to develop ways that I could personally read without stressing much, right? And thankfully, I've come up with an approach that helps me to go through books in a fun way, sort of like gamifying reading, and then also being able to retain much of the information that I'm reading from the book, because ultimately that's the point. If you read and you don't remember, you don't keep the lessons from the book and you don't apply them, it's more like you're just reading for fun. You may do that with the fiction books, right? So in this video, I want to share that approach that I've developed. Hopefully help someone out there. I also want to know your thoughts about it. Alright, so let's go into it. Before we dive into the art of effective reading, I want us to start at the very top, right? Engaging with what you already know. I'm talking about prior knowledge, the value of prior knowledge, right? I want you to think of your brain or your mind like a web that is intricately woven by threads of knowledge that you've built up over a lifetime, right? Every new piece of information that you come across either strengthens this web or bounces off it. Like there is no connection, just bounces. I don't know if you have been in a situation like this. You've met someone, just met someone, and then you ask of their name, and then they tell you, right? You continue the conversation for just a few minutes after, and you realize that you actually do not remember the person's name. Like it's as if they never mentioned the name. It's as if you never heard them, right? That happens because you were not able to find a connection between the person's name and then something you already know. There was no connection, so that new piece of information just bounces off like it was never there. So the same way, prior knowledge is very important for reading effectively and retaining much of what you read. Okay, so think about the last book you picked up. Did you start reading on a blank slate, or did you bring some expectations or ideas to the first page? Chances are you have some preconceived notions about the subject that you're reading on, and that really helped with your retaining the information you're reading from the book and even enjoying or keeping up with the book. So why is it important to talk about prior knowledge in this reading thing? By activating what you already know about the subject you're reading on, you are priming your brain to engage with what you're reading so that you can keep or retain what you're learning and apply it later in your life, which is the value of reading, one of the biggest values of reading. So how exactly do you go about creating or making use of this prior knowledge in reading effectively? Well, that's what this video is about, so we're diving right in. Alright, so I've picked up a new book. What's the next step? I resist the urge to dive right into the book. Instead, I take a moment to survey the terrain. I engage with the title of the book. Now you might be wondering, why start with the title? Isn't that just basic information? Well, this is where most readers miss a golden opportunity. The title of a book is a window into the author's mind and the core essence of a book. So it's not just a label. By dissecting the title, we are activating our prior knowledge about the subject, or perhaps even the gaps in our understanding. Okay, let's break it down with an example. Imagine you pick up a book and titled The Art of War by Sun Tzu. The word art suggests a crafted approach to something typically perceived as chaotic or destructive. War immediately signals conflict, strategy, and history. So already, just from the title, you are prompted to think about what strategic lessons you might learn, not just about warfare, but applicable to everyday challenges and conflicts. So this is not just reading, it's about prepping your mind to engage deeply with what you're about to learn. Now, once you've unpacked the title, it's time to set the stage for deeper understanding of what you're about to read by forming your initial hypothesis. Think of it as the first draft of understanding of the subject before you dive deeply into the depth of the book. This hypothesis is your personal theory of what you think the book will cover or reveal based on the title and your prior knowledge. For instance, continuing with the art of war, you might hypothesize that this book will contain strategies or teach about strategies that will not only concern military tactics, but will be applicable in personal and corporate conflicts. Now, this initial guess doesn't have to be accurate. It's merely a starting point that will evolve as you read. The beauty of it is that it engages your brain into active learning. You're not just passively absorbing information, you are actively critically thinking about the information, challenging your assumptions, and preparing your mind to either validate or revise your initial thoughts. So it's like turning your reading session into an active dialogue between you, the reader, and the author, where you are constantly testing your ideas and refining your understanding. Now, with the hypothesis in place, our next step is to navigate the table of contents with a strategic eye. This isn't just a list of chapters, it's a map that outlines the journey you are going to undertake. So by scanning the table of contents, you begin to identify the key themes and structure of the book. Now, this step is about making connections between the chapters, understanding how they build upon each other, and how they relate to your initial hypothesis. Let's say you are examining the content in The Art of War. You might notice chapters on terrain, energy, weak points, and strong. Instantly, you're making mental links. How does terrain affect energy? How can understanding strong and weak points be a metaphor for personal growth or business strategies? Now, each connection you make not only prepares you for a more structured reading, but also reinforces the framework you have in your mind, making it easier for you to remember and apply the lessons. As you begin to immerse yourself in the book, your next tactic is to have a targeted scan of the various pages of the book for notable features. This includes diagrams, tables, subheadings, or any visually distinct element that catches your eye. Now, these features are not just random, they are strategically placed as like signposts by the author to draw your attention to some important concepts or data. By identifying and understanding these features early on, you are integrating visual learning with textual content, enhancing your grasp of complex ideas. For example, in a chapter about tactics in the art of war, a diagram might illustrate the positioning of troops. Sorry, this doesn't actually happen in the art of war, but such a visual can encapsulate more complex strategies in a simple, memorable way. As you relate these visuals to your initial hypothesis and the connections you made in the table of contents, you are layering information, which is a powerful tool for enhancing retention. So each feature you note is like a piece of a puzzle, helping you build a complete picture in your mind. After engaging with the structured and the visual elements of the book, the real integration begins. Approach the reading of the rest of the pages of the book as not just a reader, but an investigator, trying to verify your hypothesis. This is where earlier preparations pay off. You will read the main text with a critical eye, constantly questioning and correlating what you learn with the framework you've already built in your mind. At times, you might find that some of your initial ideas were way off the mark, but that is not just okay, It's expected and beneficial. Each time you adjust or tweak your understanding of new information, you are practicing critical thinking and reinforcing memory. For instance, if a chapter on the use of spice contradicts your assumptions about secrecy, this is your cue to revise your hypothesis. And this method ensures that by the time you have done with this book, you've not just read it, you have interacted with the book, you have challenged the book, and you have internalized its lessons. This approach therefore makes the reading process not just effective but more significantly memorable. Alright, so if you stayed with me all this while, congratulations, you just mastered a powerful strategy to not only read books but to truly comprehend them and apply the lessons you learned from the book. By dissecting the title, forming hypotheses, mapping the content, scanning for notable features, and actively engaging with the text, you have turned passive reading into an active exploration. Always remember, the goal for reading shouldn't just be to finish the books, but then to be able to extract valuable information that you can apply in your lives to affect your thoughts and actions. So now I encourage you to try this method out with your next book you're picking up. Let me know what you think about it. Does it work for you? Did you have to employ some other strategies alongside? Was it effective? Do you think there are some components to it that are really challenging that you want me to throw more light on? I could make another video working on that. Can you drop your stories and experiences with this approach? If you've ever used it, if it's something you're already using too, let me know. Let's us all discuss and learn from each other. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and it was a lovely moment making this video, and I hope that you enjoy it and learn so much from it. And before you leave, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Kindly hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and until we meet again, adios.